This episode of Nintendo Expansion Pass is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our family of podcasts, head over to patreon.com/bossrushmedia or search for us on the Patreon app on your smart device. Thanks for helping us build something better. Hello everybody, welcome to Nintendo Expansion Pass here on Boss Rush Games. I'm your host, the Night Excited ADV. Joining me is the one, the only bossman himself, Mr. Corey Derrick. Hello, good sir.
Hello. Happy to be here on this Friday evening with you, Ed.
Happy to be here with you on this Friday evening, Corey.
I'm trying not to lose my voice, so here we go. This might be on the shorter end, but it's fine. It's fine.
Yes. Well, it's actually, so if people know, we've been ranking Nintendo. We kind of talked about the Dreamcast in the past and the Sega Genesis, and we got a new thing of ranking Pokemon and stuff. And people have heard our Game of the Year discussion. So I kind of want to ask you, Corey, what is it about these topics and these shows where we rank stuff and it's related to Nintendo? What gets you more excited about it? Is it the debate that we have, or is it the commonality?
Yes,
that...
the debates that we have about third-party games on Nintendo consoles always is a pleasure. Always a joy. Spoilers for a future episode of this. My gosh. No, I think a lot of it has to do with nostalgia, and everybody just likes to talk about things that they like and rank things that they like, and really have a discussion about it with people that enjoy similar things, But I think nostalgia and memories and just that type of thing really, especially for our list, does a lot for that, right? Like I'm sure when ranking Pokemon is over, right? Spoilers for a future ranking Nintendo, it's Pokemon starters.
Yes.
Also spoilers, I'm not on those because it's Pokemon. I think I guarantee you the top starters will be one from the first 2 or 3 generations, the number one spot, right? Like I'm just predicting it. I just think that a lot of people like to talk about, especially people our age, right? Like usually when you get in your 30s and 40s, like you start thinking about things in a different light. And on a recent episode of After Dark, we talked about why in media and video games do we really enjoy going back to school, right? Like we were talking about, Persona is really big, like, and the main theme is like high school, or Trails of Cold Steel, or even Skyward Sword to an extent, right? That beginning, like the whole thing takes place at a school, right? Like it's in a lot of people are excited for Hogwarts Legacy that's coming out. Like that takes place at a school. Why does schools going back to school feel like something that we want to do, even if we didn't really, all of us had different experiences in high school, right? But there's something about it that draws you back sometimes when you're older. And I think it's the same way with Nintendo, especially because we grew up with the company, right? Like people, not trying to sound like the old guy in the room here, right? But like my nephews are never going to grow up with a company, right? We grew up with Nintendo and Sega and Atari. Like we saw the rise and fall for the most part of those companies. And since then we've grown attached to these brands, these companies, right? Like I'm attached to Nintendo and I'm attached to Sega because we grew up with them, and there's a lot of memories made with playing Sonic the Hedgehog or Rocket Knight Adventures or Turtles in Time and Hyperstone Heist or Mario Kart, right? There's a lot of nostalgia in those things. Whereas like, I don't have nearly the high uh praise or nostalgia for something like PlayStation, right? I never had a PlayStation 1. PlayStation 2 I had one, but had a DVD player, and I could argue that my favorite games weren't even PlayStation games, right? I mean, aside from the God of War and God of War 2, like my favorite games were like Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy 10 and 12 and The Bouncer and although The Bouncer isn't really that great, but I would argue that it's pretty good. Um it's just nostalgia has a huge factor in all of this stuff.
Yeah, I think when we get into ranking or creating lists, whether it's for a system or it's just something in general, I think it's our experience of that time with that game, whether it's now or it's something that we when it originally released, we were there to play and everything. Of course, I get made fun of because I'm the Nintendo kid, or I love Nintendo. But like I tell people, I played the Sega Master System. I'm a big arcade head. I
Mhm.
was there with the Neo Geo in the arcades. I didn't have the system, but like I stepped away from Nintendo while having the Super Nintendo. I got a TurboGrafx 16. And this, I think, yeah, our nostalgia and our history with these games is what kind of makes this make our list and our rankings. Like, dude, I went back and listened to our 25 games for Wii U and everything, and it's just like, man, what a time that we were able to have with the Wii U. And what regardless of where we place games at with that list, it was an undeniable system that had some really high quality games on there. And yes, a lot of them came from Nintendo themselves, but it kind of just shows you that I think when you're ranking stuff on the Nintendo platform, there's just so much goodness on there. I don't have nothing against Sony. I don't have nothing against Microsoft. The problems that I do have and I address with them, I'm not going to knock them for the greatness that they have on those platforms too, because I became a multi uh, gamer when I was able to buy my own systems. My first system that I bought out away from Nintendo was a Dreamcast.
Mhm.
And look how many episodes and discussions we had about Dreamcast. Like, we had a lot. you know,
Mhm.
like I could have a discussion about PlayStation 2 and Xbox and all of that, and just really pinpoint some of the great games that I have on there. I think with Nintendo, it's just that there's a lot of experiences on that platform, regardless of age, that I experienced. So having those discussions and trying to wrestle and stuff, and I literally have to force myself to be like, Eddie, you have to be equal to everybody. It is not
Mhm.
your list. Your list is not the definitive list.
Some people would argue you still have trouble with that.
uh, but
Uh,
I think the reason I bring it up is because we have a lot of episodes here on Boss Rush that do stuff for this outside of our Game of the Year awards and stuff like there, and it amazes me that when you go back and you listen to it, it kind of puts you not in the headspace, but it kind of makes you think that, man, they really were. You can sometimes hear people's passion for games when it comes to a list. Yes, I say a lot of stuff about Majora's Mask, but I'm not going to deny the impact that it had for a lot of gamers. And I think when impact is part of the equation of ranking a game list, it's very important to let let people know who listens or watch it on what that impact meant to that person for that particular game.
yeah. Yeah, and going back to like Xbox and PlayStation, right? It's not
Mhm.
like I mean, if I got a PlayStation 1 instead of a Nintendo 64 for Christmas in 1996, right? Like, yeah, sure, I would have a ton of nostalgia for PlayStation, right? But I just didn't. I got a Nintendo 64, which, it's still the greatest. It's still my favorite sequence of getting a gift in my entire life, right? And the meaning that that console has to me and everything, like it of course it's all based on nostalgia. The Nintendo 64, like, you know, I love the console, but like it's kind of weird. It looks stupid. The controller is stupid. Like, I mean, that controller was clearly made for Mario 64 and maybe Zelda, and that's it, right? And everybody else had to adapt.
Mhm.
But like Mario 64, man, like that's such a that's such a nostalgia trip, you know? And
Yeah.
I mean, I've been thinking about going through another clear out of stuff because we're starting to make plans to move and look for a house, and not that we're doing it like now. It'll probably be like 6 or 8 months from now to a year, right? And you got to find the right lender, and my wife talked to a realtor today, and you got to find the right house, et cetera, whatever. Boring stuff. Um but like, moving sucks. And also, like, if I have stuff, like, I want to make sure the stuff means something to me instead of just having it to have it, you know?
Mhm.
And I've really gotten to that point where, like, I was looking at my Pokemon cards recently, right? Like, I've been trying to think about getting rid of those things for like 2 years, you know? All the original Pokemon cards, not all of them. I don't have a Charizard. Sorry, I don't have a first edition hollow Charizard, right? But like, I have a lot of cards downstairs.
Right. And I
And so, like, you know, I finally, like, cuz Stephanie told me she sold a couple cards on the TCG I don't know what it's called. I would have to look it up. But she sold two cards for like $450. I'm like, shoot, I have cards that are probably worth like thousands of dollars that I could sell on there and probably buy our house, you know,
Mhm.
which is something I'm going to look to do either this weekend or next weekend.
Yeah. I think with me it's just I have the games that I buy mean something to me. It's just like
Yeah, I'm not saying that the games that I buy don't mean something to me. I'm just
Mhm.
saying, like, there are a lot of games that I either purchased or repurchased, or because I had them, and like, do they really, like, I've really come to a point where I'm like, does this game really mean something to me? You know? And I've been thinking about Nintendo 64 and GameCube specifically.
Mhm.
Now, GameCube, there's a lot of games that mean something to me, and a lot of those games are missing, right? Like, we've had that discussion.
Yes.
I mean, to catch people up, I lost like half my GameCube and Wii collection when I was moving out of an ex's house to because reasons. It was a bad relationship. I was getting out, and I like something I counted something like 30 something games got left behind. Um, would I like to get some of those games back? Of course I would. We talk about Twilight Princess for GameCube all the time, but
Yes.
like, is that version that I buy off of eBay going to be the same as the version that I bought, stood in line for with, friends and people that meant a lot to me, and played it together with, and went through these things together with? Like, I don't know, maybe not. And I have two other versions of that game, probably three by the time the Switch's lifespan runs out, but I don't know. I've really been going through a lot of this nostalgia stuff lately, and um, there are games I would like to repurchase in the long run. Will I ever have a large GameCube collection again? I don't know. That's something I'll revisit down the road. Maybe not, but maybe. Uh, but am I ever going to collect all these Nintendo 64 cartridges again? No,
Mhm.
probably not. Like I could probably name like 10 Nintendo 64 games that mean a lot to me that I would like to have complete in box. And most of them I do, right? Like Ocarina of Time Gold cartridge, my copy of Mario 64, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo Kazooie 1 and 2, right? Like there's games that I have complete in box, but like, and I know people are gonna like roll their eyes or gasp in shock or whatever, but like last year I sold Paper Mario. Sorry, I sold Paper Mario complete in box for like 150 bucks, like a year and a half ago, right? Because Paper Mario doesn't mean anything to me, and it was great to like have that money to put towards. I think my OLED. I forget what I put that money towards. But it was nice to have that money and like get something that I really wanted and really kind of have. And now that like Nintendo is putting out the classic games and you can buy the classic controllers, and as somebody who's like trying to declutter,
Mhm.
it's like, man, are these still really worth having? And someday, yeah, when I have like a basement that I can put a huge TV in and hook up my consoles and have stuff on display, I would like to have some games to sit out on display with some statues and stuff, right? Like that's the goal. That's the end goal. But I don't need to have like 300, cartridges laying on the shelf, right? Like I already went through my NES collection. I saved about 10 games that really meant a lot to me, right? Like Mario 1, 2 and 3, Ninja Turtles 1 and 2. I never owned the third one. I thought about buying it at some point, but I have the Cowabunga collection, so now I don't really care. Um, Donkey Kong Jr., Tetris, Ninja Gaiden 2, like games that meant a lot to me I kept, but like the rest of them I'm just like I try to get rid of or you know, like we always joke about the Tom Sawyer Island game that I had, Adventures with Tom Sawyer, that's like super racist. Um,
I was watching that as a playthrough on YouTube a couple of days ago.
yeah, oh my gosh, so bad. It's like a really bad ripoff of Bayou Billy if anybody's ever played that.
Oh, it's a mess.
Oh, it's so bad. Um, but then like I went through my Sega Genesis stuff and I'm like, man, I wish I still had the cases to some of these games. I don't remember what happened to the cases to these games,
Mhm.
uh, because I used to have them and then I don't remember what happened to them. My thought was like when I had that house fire and I had everything in the closet, like they kind of melted and I saved the cartridges. I think is probably what happened. Uh, but it nostalgia and things that mean a lot to you are like I don't know. Been having a really interesting time thinking about things recently.
Mm.
So,
Well, I know with me, like for older games and stuff, when they get re-released or like they come on Nintendo Switch Online and stuff,
hmm
it kind of at times it'd be like, do I still got the video game skill to get through this? Or sometimes it'd be like, I want to play this game because I feel like I want to go into the past and just relive that moment when I was playing this game as a kid and stuff. Other times, like when I get to play stuff with you, Corey, something that you might first experience is it's like I finally get to play this game with somebody, with a friend, because that's one of the things I think that I miss as a kid when it came to Nintendo and when it came to Sega. That I really didn't have a player to play a game with. I mean, I have my brother and stuff, but I was the one helping my brother, saving him a lot. Or I had to play Madden or not Madden, or I had to play Joe Montana with them so that he could have someone to play and everything instead of him playing it against the computer. But like my brother wasn't playing Double Dragon with me. My brother wasn't even playing Streets of Rage with me and stuff. And so I kind of like when I able to have a two-player game and someone's with me playing it and we're having fun, I get to relive or I get to live in that moment that if we were kids and we were having this much fun, it would make the experience a bit better.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And, I and there are things that like there are games that I would like to have just because they are important,
Hmm.
not to me specifically, but to like history of games, and uh but again, if they don't mean anything to me, how important are they really? Like I look at stuff like so I used to have a black label version of Final Fantasy VII for PlayStation,
Ooh.
and I ended up getting rid of it because I'm like, I don't care about Final Fantasy VII. And to an extent, I still don't, right? Like I mean, I think the remake looks awesome, and I plan on playing it at some point. Uh, but I kept my Black Label 8, my Black Label 9. You know, I have a couple PlayStation 1 games that meant a lot to me when I got a PlayStation 2. Uh, 007 Racing, which is a terrible combat racing game.
Oh goodness.
Uh, but at the time, like it meant a lot because like I got it, and my dad and I like it's one of the few things we bond over is like no pun intended is 007, and he watched me play and thought it was neat, and like that game, even though it's not a great game, it meant a lot that he sat and watched me play it.
Yeah.
And so I kept it, and that game is going to mean something to me as opposed to having like 45 JRPGs that maybe I played a couple hours of and don't mean anything to me.
But I think that's when a game means something to me. I think it's because of being a single player and a loner as a kid playing games. And,
Hmm.
not having anyone to talk about video games because in the community and neighborhood that I was in, video games wasn't important to them. Sports was and everything, and girls were, but like those things were important to me because I guess I didn't get no satisfactory out of them. But when it was a game that I was able to get a high score, that I was get to see the ending, or I was enjoying the music and stuff, it was something that I felt that it spoke to me in a way that other media and other things in real life didn't speak. Yeah, it's fantasy, and everything, and that maybe that says a lot about me. But I'm like, I was the that was the kid that people went to for games to see if they were good or they were bad. I was the one trying different genres and everything, and even though I wasn't skilled at a lot of games, learning them was important to me and stuff.
Yeah.
So when we get into like we're ranking stuff, and yeah, I may make a shady joke here and there, or do people see the excitement and stuff? It's because that's the stuff that I experienced um that I enjoyed, that I grew up with and stuff. And now that we got these modern games on Nintendo's platforms and stuff, I'm finding new classics. I'm finding new experiences. The way that the indie community has been putting all these different games, talking about emotions, you know, making you view games in a different light. Those are creating memories for me that I could fall back on and be like, if we ever had to rank this, bam, that's what I'm gonna rank it as and stuff.
Hmm.
You know, I I know a lot of people love Uncharted 4 and other games on PlayStation 4, but I always say that I feel like The Last Guardian on PlayStation 4 is like the best game on on that console because yeah, I always say it feels like Sony's Nintendo game, but it was an experience that I'm never going to get and no one else can design, and it spoke to me in ways that no other game has and stuff. And I think I like it when I could have a game speak to me that Nintendo games just don't do and
Mm,
stuff. And when you, yes, this like we said, this is a Nintendo podcast. But when you have something that your favorite company can't do, it's not a bad thing. It's
mhm,
really good because it shows you the difference that if you don't go out and play different stuff, you're missing out on creativity that your favorites can never, or they just can't deliver at that moment. Like I don't know if I would get a Nintendo game that's on the level of The Last Guardian. You know, some people may say, "Well, that's you Breath of the Wild." No, Breath of the Wild and the Zelda series offer me something completely different than what Sony and Microsoft. I feel like Forza Horizon 4 is kind of like maybe the best game on Xbox on Xbox One because it was something. And I'm not a big person into driving games, but there's a feeling I get cruising around in that open world and listening to the music. And I don't know what it is, but it speaks to me in that way. You know, uh,
mhm.
and I guess being more of a open gamer and being a fair and welcoming gamer has changed my perspective on games. Yes, I get on GTA, you know, but I think it's because of playing Sleeping Dogs that it was just like, man, this is a game that not only is the characters used correctly, but the gameplay is fun and it feels original. Something feels fresh about it. You know, it's not going for anything big and grandeur, but it feels something that can stand on its own and stand on the as for the through the test of time. That it's a classic.
If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/BossRushMedia, and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support. Man, games. Classics.
Yes, and I know Corey, me and you have argued, well, not argued, discussed, debated about games. I don't think we ever had an argument about games and stuff.
I mean, I think we have probably once or twice in the last 8 years.
But I think I think we it's the argument is it is I don't think we had the argument because we're set in our ways and stuff. I think we just at times view games different or see things different that the other don't see or know about.
I mean, I think we just prefer different experiences, you know? I mean, sometimes, you know, you're a big Mario fan and I am not, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't really care for Mario Odyssey. Like, yeah, Mario 64 was a pivotal game for me, but like that didn't change the way I feel about 3D platformers. It was a revolution because I had never played a 3D game before,
Mhm.
right? And then I experienced stuff like Ocarina of Time and Star Fox 64 and Banjo Kazooie, and like the rest is history, obviously. But like, Mario Sunshine or Galaxy or Odyssey didn't really blow me away. I can sit here and say that they're great 3D platformers, but like I prefer something like Zelda or even Xenoblade, even though I haven't put a lot of time into those games. Or I mean, even look at how many hours have I put into Destiny, you know? Like those experiences are different from the experiences that you enjoy, and I think that's what makes us all I think that's what makes us great is that we have these differences and we're willing
Mm,
to talk about it, you know, cuz like not to get like not to get super political on the show, but like I think that's one of the issues right now too in the world is just like nobody is willing to have some sort of intelligent conversation about something, right? That's
right.
always black or white or, you know, and I'm not talking race in the race sense. I mean like this person thinks this way and this person thinks the other way and nobody's going to change anybody's mind and then that means you just can't be friends or can't get along, right? Like I hate that about the world today and it's like I think that's you know, I disagree with you on a lot of things and you disagree with me on some things and it's like, well, we're still friends, you know, because it's not going to change the way we think about each other or,
Right.
you know, I actually think that conversation makes a better show regardless of people think it does or not, you know.
Yeah. And I think I could personally say for myself that I I I'm trying to learn to see things from different points of views or the points of views. I you mentioned Destiny. Destiny is a big thing, and yes, it may feel like I get on Destiny, but I love Destiny too. I love the content that has come to Destiny 2. I don't play it as often, or I'm not up to snuff on it on a personal level or anything. But I think Bungie knocked it out with Destiny 2 from playing Destiny 1. I said it's it's leaps and bounds. And so I get happy when you're talking about it and I hear from you uh and hear on Tower Casual all the things that is going on in that universe. It makes me happy because it may at times it may not be my cup of tea, but I'm not gonna knock Butchie. I always talk to you about their cutscenes or their trailers on how beautiful they are and everything. And I give props to Bungie for doing that. And I'm glad that it's something that you definitely enjoy. And I think that's what when it comes to ranking stuff, uh or just playing games in general, that I learned that when people love stuff and everything, don't knock them for that. Be happy for them and stuff. And if a game is not for you, you can still celebrate people's enjoyment and what they love to play
Mm,
and everything. Um, and I think that's why when I get very defensive about Nintendo, it's because I feel when I get to a point where I feel like Nintendo's getting knocked for these things, it's because maybe you're not you, Corey, but maybe that person is not a big Nintendo fan and have experienced those games. And I wish they would. Maybe it's hard because of them not being the fans. They don't understand the celebration that I have for them. But if they could put that all aside and be like, Eddie, we're glad that you played these Nintendo games and you get something out of them. I get on LeBron about Uncharted 2 for as much. Corey knows, trust me.
game,
But
game, that game is amazing.
but I do give it to Naughty Dog that hey, they made an amazing game that people love. It's not my cup of tea because of some logical things, but that's on me. I'm not gonna knock Naughty Dog for it. I'm gonna celebrate the friends who love that game. If they love Uncharted 2, awesome. Love that they love that game.
Yeah.
And you gotta admit, at least I'm not a hater of things if I don't play it. That's not my cup of tea. And if I have been in the past, I'm trying to fix all of that
Hmm.
and everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that's something that we could all do better is like looking at things from other people's perspectives and
Hmm.
you know, I mean, look, I'm not the biggest Last of Us fan, right? But I know that a lot of people love that game, and I'm not gonna like, you know, be negative about it because they like it. I actually am thinking about playing through those games this year, just because it's something that I haven't done, and I should probably, as an enthusiast of this hobby,
Hmm.
and someone who there's probably a list of games somewhere that you should probably play whether you like them or not because they're historically important. Obviously Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, like Super Metroid. There's a list of games somewhere that you should play because they're historically important. And I think there are specific games like I think the Mass Effect trilogy is historically important. I
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
I think something like BioShock is historically important. I
Yeah.
think The Last of Us is historically important. Even if you don't like the way that Naughty Dog games feel or play or whatever, like in the grand scheme of things, that game is historically important. And I feel that there is a specific list of games that I should play through that there's a lot of games that I haven't, and you know, I
Yeah.
plan to remedy some of that this year.
And I think that's why sometimes when it's other platforms and it comes to games that people are big on, um, I always feel like, okay, you experienced this, but you should also experience this if you're looking more of that. It's just in a different direction and different presentation, but you should go experience if you're looking for that and
Hmm.
stuff. you know um and I'm learning. I think that's the one thing about games today and people's taste is that sometimes it's good to learn, and learning helps you get out of your comfort zone of the stuff uh that you're used to. I know, Corey, you mentioned uh kind of a trifecta or something. What was it? I think Madden, Call of Duty, and there was a third game. I can't think of it. Uh,
Of what?
of like I guess the people who call themselves gamers, the hardcore gamers. It was like Madden, Call of Duty,
In Grand
and
Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto. And I've been thinking, I've been thinking of this kind of editorial. Are those three games the equivalent of Mario, Zelda, or Mario, Link, and Samus? You
I
know,
mean, I think Modern Warfare, the first one, is an extremely historically important game. Um, I think Grand Theft Auto 3, arguably that whole, I don't know. I think Grand Theft Auto 3 is historically important just from an open world perspective.
hmm
Um, I think that whole era of PlayStation 2 sports games were incredibly popular.
yeah,
Even if you weren't a sports fan, I think anybody out there would play knows like NBA Live or Madden or 2K or even something like All Star Baseball or MLB. Sports games at that in that era were incredibly important. You know,
yeah.
not so much now, but back then, I mean, Madden on PS2 was revolutionary. Revolutionary.
Shoot,
You know,
NBA, NFL 2K was big
yeah.
when that
Well,
game
NFL
came out.
2K for Dreamcast was big.
Yes.
But obviously Dreamcast didn't exist after 18 months. But also when they made that move, like it was, I think why Madden kept becoming so much better is because they had competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's not very good now is because they have no one to compete against. So they just keep putting
Yes.
out the same game. Not, I mean, look, sports games developers have like the hardest job in the entire industry. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like the higher ups that don't let them like take a little bit of a break or refresh certain things, you know. Plus Madden's running on Frostbite, which has been a problematic engine for a long time anyway. But that's a different story for a different day. But yeah.
So, well, Corey, I think we're gonna wrap this one up. I
guess we could. I guess.
I know we talked a different thing about games and stuff, and I think I just brought that question because I feel like when ranking games and taking a whole bunch of things into consideration, I think they're fun. And when it's games that you haven't invested any time in or even heard of, to hear someone talk about it, it makes you want to look into stuff, into games and everything.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, everybody out there who plays games, like, just play what you love. You know, I've really struggled with that. Like, I've really struggled with the concept of playing what I love and playing what I think we should be playing for shows and content and stuff, and it never goes anywhere. And I always end up just never playing anything, you know, mostly because we're doing a lot of content and I'm editing it. But like, it just, you know, half the time I just stare at my Switch or one of my other consoles, and then I just end up watching TV and falling asleep because I'm just like, I don't know what to play. There's too much choice, and there's games that I want to play, but then there's games that I think I should be playing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you scroll on Twitter and see people's, you know, we're 2.5 weeks into the year as of the time of this recording, 3 weeks into the year, and I see people like, well, I've beaten 3 games this year. I've beaten 5 games this year. I'm like, it's been 20 days. What do you do? What are you doing? You know, like I don't know. It just, my goal this year was to play games more, and so far this year I haven't played that many games like at all. And yeah, I don't know. Now I'm rambling because I'm tired, and get me out of here. Save me.
Well, everybody, that's gonna be it for Nintendo Expansion Pass. Let us know on our Discord, like, when it comes to ranking games or discussing games, how do you go about it? How do you feel about it? Do you love finding new games? And if you are doing a ranking, do you enjoy the discussions before like making your own personal choice? And if you never heard those games that's in that ranking, do you go look for them? Let us know in our Discord. I really want to hear what you guys say.
Join the Discord.
Yay! With that, everybody, have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time on Nintendo Expansion Pass. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Nintendo Expansion Pass is part of Nintendo Power Block and is a product of Boss Rush Media LLC. The show is recorded from our headquarters in Akron, Ohio, and is hosted by me, Edward Varnell. My co-host is Corey Derrick. You can find Corey at I Am Corey at HD on Twitter and Instagram, as well as hosting the Boss Rush Podcast and Tower Casuals, the Destiny Podcast. Follow Expansion Pass as part of Nintendo Power Block and on all social media platforms at Power Block Podcast. You can also follow Boss Rush Media and Boss Rush Network on all major social media platforms. Join the Boss Rush Network Discord and Facebook groups to interact with other friends and fans. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.